Hello and welcome back to Core Finance. I'm Matt Brown. We're joined today by Alessio Rastani, who is the founder and CEO of leadingtrader.com. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
the show. Now, sad events
Yes.
over the weekend in Las Vegas. Another mass shooting in the United States of America. So we're going to talk about something that for a lot of interviewers and interviewees is quite a controversial
It is controversial,
subject.
and it's also uncomfortable.
Yes.
Certainly what happened just a few days ago in Las Vegas, 59 people, innocent human beings shot dead. Terrible tragedy, obviously. And obviously, in a situation like this, what I want to address in this video with yourself and your viewers is, for folks who may not be familiar with why Americans support gun ownership. Because I think a lot of folks in Britain, whenever I speak to folks in Britain, they seem to, and I'm not saying for everyone, but it's certainly a majority of people in this country, in the UK, seem to think that anyone who owns a gun is crazy, or that Americans who cling to guns, there's something wrong with them, or there's some crazy people. It's not true. What I want to do, although personally I'm against guns, I personally, although I've used guns before in the past, I'm against gun ownership myself, and I hate guns personally. Having said that, I respect why some Americans support the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. And I want to discuss that. I want to bring to your folks' attention what exactly is this debate all about, and I want to produce maybe some solutions to it. Potentially we can talk about it. I want to have a debate about it. Good. Before I start though, I just want to say to the camera, right, first of all, I'm not political. I don't have any political leanings towards left, right, left, the old, people always say, oh, well, you must be Democrat, Republican, lefty or righty. Not at all. I don't care about politics. And I don't think, and I think your viewers may agree with me on this should not be a political issue.
No.
It should not be about, whether you support this party or that party. It should be about what can we do to protect innocent human lives. 59 people just shot dead, and many other, in fact, 15,000 Americans died in 2016 because of gun violence. In the UK, only 26 or 28, I heard. So I think we can come to an agreement that no matter where you side on this issue, it's about protecting human lives. And yes, we also need to respect the rights of Americans who want to hold on to the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. We should see it from both angles. So let's go on to the first thing. Number one, I heard on the news recently that because of this recent event, first of all, the reason I bring this chart of gun stocks up, not because I want to look for some kind of, obviously we would not do anything so immoral and disgusting as to think about profiting from guns. The only reason I'm showing this chart is to discredit something, which is that people have said that gun stocks have went up since this crisis, since this gun attack. It's not true. They did a little bounce, but actually, if you take a look, since the 2016 election, when a Republican became president, in fact, we've seen gun stocks considerably drop. It's been in a downtrend since 2016. And there is obviously anyone who knows anything about politics in America should know why, because when the Democrats were in power, there was a fear that a Democrat president might ban guns or any kind of guns, in fact. So out of fear, gun stocks were going up. As soon as
stockpiling, people buying guns.
Yes, people were buying, and from what I heard, the business was doing tremendously well. But after Trump became president, obviously, since Republicans traditionally have been pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment, so there was no fear of guns being removed. So as a result, stocks dropped, and that's the only reason I'm mentioning this. Obviously, it is disgusting and immoral to even think about profiting from the sale of guns, and I would not dream of it. I'm only mentioning this to see the whole angle, this whole picture. Going to the next chart, guys, and I want to discuss the three arguments as to, and I think it's important that folks everywhere, wherever you guys are, try to understand it from an American point of view, people in the States who who say, look, this is why we need to have guns. And I think it's important. But I also want to break it down because I think there are responses to these arguments. So number one, the first argument, I think by far the most powerful and I would say the most persuasive argument, which people who support the Second Amendment have, is that guns protect us against a tyrannical government. And that, in my view, I think anyone can agree, there's some truth in that. For example, it is a fact that in the Second World War, when Hitler, when the Nazis, well, the first thing they did is they gathered up all the guns, removed the guns from the citizens because they didn't want anyone to rise up against them.
Yes.
The first thing a totalitarian, dictatorial government does is to remove guns. I mean, we've seen it in many countries in the Middle East where they have dictatorships and they take away the guns from the citizens for obvious reasons. So, and there's a fact, and the truth is that most Britons and other people maybe don't appreciate the fact that the reason why there is this
Second Amendment
is because it dates back to the independence from the British. So the Americans say, the founding fathers said, well, what can we do to protect ourselves from a tyrannical government? And there was some, I think they did it truly, I think there was some good intentions behind it. Yes, there were some good intentions behind it. But I don't think the founding fathers ever imagined that one day we would be having assault rifles like the, I mean, I'm not a gun expert, but you know what I'm talking about, the ones where you shoot automatic, semi-automatic guns. You know, what essentially can kill 59 people dead or 500 people injured in a matter of 10 minutes. They never imagined or envisaged such a thing. And I think whatever you side in this argument, I think we can agree that the founding fathers 300 years ago did not imagine when they put that into law in the Constitution that we would be, that they somehow allowed those kind of, they wanted people to own those kind of guns.
Yes.
And also, there's a fact that in the Second Amendment, when they refer to bear arms, they were talking to an armed militia.
Yes.
I don't think they envisaged every single citizen from owning guns. But that's a different matter, it's a different debate.
Yes.
So I think, look, people should understand that folks in America who want to protect the Second Amendment, they do it for some valid reasons, which is how do you protect yourself? As this cartoon shows, by the way, on this chart, you know, it says who will control the government's guns, and that's a perfectly valid argument.
Yes.
Now, here's an objection to it, and I think what I want to do is put the argument there and debate it. And I don't know what you think about it, Matt, but this is what I think. The fact is that I don't think citizens owning guns is going to protect you from a tyrannical government, because a tyrannical government will always have more sophisticated weapons than anybody else. They already have weapons that can vaporize people, kill them, instantaneously. So having an assault rifle or any kind of gun is not going to protect you against a tyrannical government.
No, I mean just to interject. I mean we've got obviously we've talked a lot about on the show North Korea.
Yes.
Now here's someone who isn't allowed to bear arms, or shouldn't be allowed to bear arms, to protect themselves against, as they see it, tyrannical governments globally. So there is a bit of a contradiction with regards to stopping citizens, or allowing citizens, I should say, of your own country to bear arms, terrible arms that are used for assault rifles.
Absolutely.
And yet a different story when regards to someone in a country. So that's looking at it at a global scale.
Absolutely. Whenever I sit down with my folks in America, and I have family in America who support having guns. They have guns, and they're very passionate about the Second Amendment, and that's fine. I respect that. But I always hear this argument that if you don't have guns, then how are you going to protect yourself against the government who is going to essentially enforce laws on you? And again, Americans are thinking going back to the British rule back in the day. But here's the thing. I always say this, well, how are you going to protect yourself against a tanks coming forward, shooting you down? I mean, a gun is not going to protect you because the government will have the tanks, they'll have the big artilleries and machines. How is that even plausible as an argument? Nonetheless, I do understand some folks who have this argument. Now, going to the second argument, and this is actually the number one reason, according to a Pew research that was done. They asked people, why do you want to have a gun? And they found this is by far the number one reason. Self-defense. And again, I understand that. Many folks in America say, I have a gun because I want to protect myself against other people. But when you ask, but here, I think it's a circular argument. Here's what I think. Even though it makes sense on the face of it, it's kind of a circular argument because it says, well, I want to have a gun to protect myself against other people who want to use a gun against me. Well, I think it's a circular argument because it's a dangerous environment because we have guns in the first place. If you remove the guns, although I would say that's impractical, I'm not dumb enough to understand that it's impossible. There are more guns in America right now than there are people.
But we've seen amnesties. We've seen amnesties in Australia. We've seen amnesties happen in the UK after some very sad mass shootings took place in the 80s and early 90s. And there have been amnesties, and stripping out handguns and stripping out assault rifles. There are still shotguns and rifles for sport.
Yes.
And that's understood. But, and we still have shootings in this country. The majority of them are from illegal guns, non-licensed guns.
Yes.
But you can put in place an amnesty.
Absolutely. And certainly it has worked in the UK since that amnesty was done. I mean, you only have to look at the figures. 28 deaths in 2016 from handguns in this country in the UK, 15,000 in America. Putting that debate aside, there's also another thing. After this shooting in Vegas, one of the guitarists, I think one of the singers, I believe, on the stage, he actually changed his mind about one thing in regards gun control. He was against gun control. Now he's changed his mind. Not completely, but he's basically what he found was, this is actually important to share because he said that when that shooting happened in Vegas, he realized that if he had a gun, because this is an argument that many people put forward on the gun side, which is that if you had a gun, if people had guns to protect themselves, they could shoot down the bad guy. You know, use guns against the bad guy, self-defense, in other words. But the fact is, this guy was shooting from a 32nd floor. Nobody could see where he was. Nobody knew where the shots were coming from. And this guy who was singing on the stage, he said if he had a gun, he would be shot dead because the police were coming looking for someone who's got a gun. If he had been there having a gun in his hand, the police probably might have thought he was the guy who was doing the shooting, and he said he would have been shot dead. So he changed his mind about that. He said he changed his mind about this one thing, which is if I had a gun to protect myself with, then I could shoot the bad guy. It doesn't work in real life. In real life, the fact is if you have a gun to try to shoot the bad guy, you'll get shot dead because the police won't know who necessarily is the bad guy. So yeah, and in fact, in studies shown, they found that it just doesn't work. Most likely you will get shot dead if you try to shoot back. So look, I'm just going to put it out there. I put my argument forward on that one. Let's go to the third one, which is guns are not the problem, it's mental illness. Well, here's the thing. According to what we found about this latest guy, I forgot his name, I think his name was Stephen Paddock, something like that. Yes. The shooter in Vegas, in other words. According to what I've been hearing in the report, this guy has never been on any kind of mental health list. There was no sign he was mentally ill. So this is a guy essentially who does not tick any of the boxes. He's never had a record, criminal record. He's never been on any mental health list, anything like that. He doesn't belong into the profiles, you know, all that kind of stuff. So this is someone who just doesn't fall into the typical narrative or the stereotype of someone who's mentally ill. And there's the thing. Often you hear this point that, you know, if instead of trying to ban guns, then just look for people who are mentally ill. Now, here's the thing, though. I think there is one thing that we can agree on. People who are mentally ill should not be allowed to have guns. In fact, 70% of American gun owners, 70% of the NRA, the National Rifle Association, the members, agree that there should be more stricter background checks.
Yes.
That's something I think both sides of the people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, can agree on. Someone who's mentally ill, someone who could commit mass murder, you know, just not mentally stable, should not be allowed to have guns. It just doesn't make any sense. And in fact, the Pew Research also found that 52% of Americans who have guns, they also want some stricter gun control. So the thing is this, though. Unfortunately, many politicians in America will not change their minds or do anything about this issue because unfortunately, many of them are in the pockets of their donors, the NRA and all that. There are many corrupt politicians in America who just will not do anything. And this is the thing.
I mean, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's corrupt.
Yeah.
Because there's lobbying and there's certain people that will receive funds from the motor industry, from the tobacco industry, from the drinks industry. Yeah. So just to clear that up, they're not corrupt if they're accepting money. It's all out in the open. But
yes,
they have allegiances that may be in contrast with their own moral standing.
It is a kind of a double standard because after any terrorist attack, 9/11, the shooting happened in Orlando when the guy came into the gay club, and immediately they took action. Immediately the government took action. Okay, what can we do to stop the next event from happening? But whenever it's about a gun issue, no. Let's just pray for the families and all that, which we, yes, sure, pray for the families and the victims. Absolutely, you should do that, but you should also take action. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to do anything. And again, I just want to repeat this point. This should not be a political issue. It's not about whether you're a left, whether you're a right wing, whether you're conservative or liberal. It should not be like that. It should, and again, I'm not political. It should be about what can we do to protect the rights of innocent people, and yes, protect the Second Amendment for people who respect their rights as well. And I think we can achieve some kind of middle ground. That's all I want to say. Yeah. So, by the way, what do you guys think? So I want to hear your views, your comments, put them on this video. Tell us what you think, and we'd love to share certainly hear from you. But thanks very much.
It's been an interesting debate. Alessio Rastani, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much. Thank you.